Hello. One of the readers of one of my books was one of the people who wanted to ask me a few questions in an interview. I thought it would be handy for my promo on Facebook once the book is born. I don't know what the questions are, and this particular reader is going to ask me a series of questions that she has written up, and I'll give her my response as needed. Once we finish that, you ready?
Mr. Hill, I understand this is the second book that you have written on the subject of Pearl Harbor. What awakened your interest in that particular part of our history?
Well, what awakened me on that particular part of our history, just a couple of strange circumstances. I went to a movie. I didn't see any publicity on Pearl Harbor. As soon as I saw a scene, it came to my head, Pearl Harbor, just by the greenery, and I hadn't been there at that point. And then Japanese heroes came through in this movie Pearl Harbor. It came out with Kate Winslet and those guys. And Enunciate, that's another one. But that and a couple other things that were just by happenstance, and I just started investigating, and I decided to do something about it. So I started my trail of finding Pearl Harbor survivors, and that's how it started.
Well, did having been in the Navy have anything to do with your interest?
Oh yeah, because Pearl Harbor was a Navy event where in Europe it was mostly an Army event. Army Air Corps, and the Navy it was Navy Air Corps, and Marines. So, and for the fact that I was in the Navy, and I worked on aircraft, and a big part of the Pacific War was aircraft. So all of those kind of things clicked into my wheelhouse. So, and I was trained in radar in the Navy. The same radar units they actually used at Pearl Harbor, because when you train, you got the old stuff. And at the time I got there in the late 60s, that's what they had for training. So not only did I know how to use it, I knew how to calibrate it. So I could give more depth and detail than a lot of writers that are writing from the subject, from history they've been told. I'm writing from what I've been told and also from what I've done.
Historians each have their own approach to telling the story of a period or a person which interests them. You're not a trained historian. How is your approach different?
My approach was different because I had a long career in law enforcement. So I came at it and originally investigating the crime scene. And Pearl Harbor was a major crime scene. So I went in it with an investigative thing, and I have a real good ability of pulling stuff from witnesses. And when I started at Pearl Harbor, they knew I was authentic, and they knew I was in the Navy, and I told them my history, and I always deal well with older people. I used to talk to older people that didn't have anybody to talk to, and even when I was on duty, they had a call, they'd call me. People would call me if they didn't have any. Some women are lonely. More women than men, because normally they live longer, so. But the weird thing about these Pearl Harbor survivors, most of these men that are in this book outlived their wives. That's a real strange phenomenon in that group of people.
What is the subject of the second volume compared? How does it compare with the first volume? Same methodology, same approach?
Slightly different, because in the first book, it was Pearl Harbor the night before. That night before, up until when the Arizona got hit, that's when all stuff came on the surface, then it switched for different reasons. For one, all the technology failures that I'm expert at were before the Arizona got hit. The radar, not taking the messages seriously. They didn't have the brand new decoding machines running yet. They were still in the boxes, just got there a week before. Half of the captains on the ships were on. They were off. They were out for 2 weeks on an alert, expecting an attack. When they came in, half the ships were run by, enlisted men or low-level officers, and the captains weren't there. Okay, all the ammo that they had when they were out on alert was all locked up, so they didn't have any ammo in the guns. Most of the ships like destroyers. They're on little pods, 5 each, and one runs hot because you can't just fire up a ship to take off. You have to take the turbine blades because they were steam powered, and it takes like an hour, hour and a half, otherwise they'll warp and the ship is helpless, and you can't just fix them in a day. That's a big thing. So most of the ships there didn't have ammo, didn't have a captain, and they weren't up the speed that they could take off, and they were providing power and water to the rest of the ships that weren't running at that time.
So, the second book, what's the subject of that?
Here's the difference. The first book is the attack didn't happen yet, and so they were unprepared. The second book is when it went off, no matter what you were doing, you drop what you're doing, now you're in the battle. Now everything's with a sense of urgency. Now you have to deal with what you have. Everybody wishes they had their guns loaded. Everybody wishes they had more information. But once things start blowing up, the Arizona was the first big explosion that killed 1,177 sailors just with that one bomb. So there was like 4 or 5 sets of brothers, 2 or 3 fathers and brothers, a couple sets of those all in Arizona that were lost. And so the ships that could do things, they try to fire up, do the best they can. But because the people who actually ran the show, the officers and the main chiefs, may not have been on board the ship, you have all these young kids, and luckily they're trained well, and most of them performed exceptionally well under the circumstances.
And so that's the subject of the second book?
It's going to be all about, the first book tells you what it was like there the night before. It's the center that they had there. They had a big dance, people dressed to the nines, like they did in the old days. All those tables with white cloths, candles that they danced to, the next morning they're covered with people being in surgeries and blood all over the tables and all over the floors. That's the world difference. Before here, they were out for walks. Monica Carter, she was out with her husband Barney, they're walking along the shore, the moon was shining, and it was almost a full moon, in the water and holding hands, and it was a real romantic thing. They all got together, and that's where they went to this one bar that makes the what do you call those Hawaiian drinks?
Mai Tai.
Mai Tai. So one famous place there, and there was a dance contest the day before, and one of my girls and a sailor won it, and they reunited just about 8 years ago, doing that one dance. And now, when the next day comes, it's all death, destruction, the ship's rolling over, fires. I take you from, give me a description of what life was like at Pearl Harbor, so you get to see 2 worlds.
So, explain to the people listening to this, how did your research proceed? How did you decide which of the survivors you wanted to interview? Or did you want to interview some of the families of some of the sailors who died? Where did you start?
I started locally at the VFW Lodge, found 5 Pearl Harbor survivors. And all Pittsburgh ones are gone now. And I started with them. Then I'm a ham radio operator since I was 14. And they had a ham radio net when they could get on and talk on the radio to each other every day. And ham radio back then was a good thing because they could communicate, because long distance phone calls were extremely expensive, as you're aware of. So I got on that net, and they liked me so much. As they got older, they put me in charge as the person being in charge of it because of my interest, because they say, you're always thinking, you're always finding new information, you're telling us stuff instead of us telling you stuff now. We want you to run the net. And I was honored to do that because these guys were a lot different than just being a stranger. We developed a relationship. I talked to them many, many times, visited them many, many times. And every time one of them passed, it kind of breaks my heart because they weren't just, like when the first book that came out in 57, okay, and the guy would contact some of the people I had, it was by letter. They didn't have telephones, all this sort of thing, and that's kind of impersonal. I was eyeball to eyeball. I was watching the tears. I was watching the expressions on their face. And the family members that they did sit in, some of the stuff they were hearing now, they never ever heard. He never said that around the family, but with me he did, or she.
So, of all of those people who you interviewed, was there any one person who stood out, and if so, why did that person stay?
That's easy. John Finn. Not necessarily because he won a medal of honor, but that's part of it, but his personality. He was like an older me. A woman who was his old friend, had married couples, and her husband died, his wife died, they become really good friends. When I would go out there with him, we would go out, eat dinner, and we both flirt with the waitress is the same. She said, he's just 30 years older than you guys are exactly the same. We just hit it off. And he was extremely pushy, but comes to work. You had to be perfect. He didn't like slackers. The men were afraid of him because he was older when the attack started. He was 33 and they're maybe 20 or 19. So he felt a responsibility to protect his kids. When the attack happened, he made them all go hide, get in a safe position. He went out in the tarmac. They said, why are you going out in the tarmac? They can see you. I go, yeah, but I can see them as well. I said, hide here. I'm going to track all the shots to you. He took them on and was wounded 21 times, okay? And he's just that kind of guy. And I asked him, why would you do something like that? He goes, yeah, I guess a dog is smart enough to come out of the rain. That's what he told me.
When will this book come out? And if anyone wants to buy your first volume before that comes out, where can they find it?
Amazon, Pearl Harbor, Once Upon a Night Before. The second book will be Pearl Harbor, Once Upon a Day. Okay, that book would be out already, except the lady that's putting the whole thing together, she's running between all those wildfires, Redwood City up in Northern California right now. So she's ducking and weaving, so hopefully before the holidays, we'll get that second book out. It will be on Amazon, Pearl Harbor, Once Upon a Day. And this book covers a lot. We invented our own code machine. The Japanese didn't know that. Our code machine, the German one is famous, the Enigma. This is the Enigma on steroids. And we had one that has never been broken. We knew the Japanese were coming, but didn't know exactly where. But the Japanese didn't know we were 1 or 2 steps ahead. We were egotists, and we thought the Japanese couldn't see, they had thick glasses, and they were weak, to be easy to beat. The Japanese thought that we were lazy, weren't organized, weren't dedicated, and they didn't take us serious. So with them not taking us serious, they never changed their code. They tried as much as they can to do stuff so it wouldn't relate to every time something big happens. And we tried to do the same. So by both being underestimating the other, that's why they got hit Pearl Harbor, and that's why we hit them back, because they didn't think we could do it.
Well, are there any other books on other subjects that you have written?
Yes. I've written 3 different books on police tactics, how women's survival, how they should trust their instincts, what to do if something happens, stuff like that. Because I've interviewed so many women and victims.
They're going to have to take some digs back here.
So, yeah, and those 2 books I've done, and I think a lot of people like that as well. If you see what happens to victims, I give them options if it comes again. Options are always good.
Okay.
Let's just take a break for a minute then.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to take, because he's going to be digging.
We'll be back from another sentence.
So, Mr. Hill, when we were interrupted, you were talking about your methodology of research. And I know there's a professor here in Pittsburgh, Dr. Donald Goldstein, whose specialty is Pearl Harbor. Have you ever met him? Is your approach different than his?
Yes, in both counts. I met him because when I first started, he is the premier. He's written 8 different books on Pearl Harbor. So he is the person you go to for facts. And so I went and introduced myself to him, and we got along real well, and he liked my enthusiasm, even though I wasn't an official student of his. He was my mentor at the beginning, told me some rules, and I told him what I had and how to go about it. And he liked that I was able to get this information that a lot of other people haven't. There's a lot of mysteries that are still undisclosed that will be disclosed in my book, because I was such a hound dog on a rabbit once I get on the trail. And he liked that about me, so he was a real nice guy. And like I say, but he's the doctorate. And my level of history doesn't even scratch the cover of his book. But my interest was this specific small point where I could focus and use my skills to get the information from. And one of the rules he told me is don't put yourself into the story, which I did break in the first book because I had the Navy training on the exact equipment that became a big issue, was the radar, and why we didn't know they were coming. So I interjected with my own personal experience in that area. But most of the stories not so. Puppies! But the dogs like to join in. No, that's a good thing. So, and how he wrote was in the manner that a history professor would. He has all the information in it, and he puts a whole lot of content in there that I wouldn't be doing because I'm not expertise in that area, and I'm more looking for the experience. I'm doing it from the bottom up, and I'm trying to let you know how it feels. So when you read my stories, you'll feel the pain, you'll feel the shock, and you'll have content, but it won't be anywhere near his level of content. Mine is specifically about what happened to these people, their personal experiences at that attack.
So how did you decide which people you kept in the book? I assume you didn't put everyone in the book. So how did you decide which ones went in the book? Was it the question that their story was more interesting, had more humanity, or was different from the experience of other people that night?
Some of that, but most of it boiled down to, some documentaries you'll see on the History Channel, and Pearl Harbor was attacked, they slam you at all this content, but it's on the surface. Like say, the Arizona blew up and 1,100 people died, and then he went to the next thing. Well, I didn't jump from 1,127 people died. I went to the people who were there, who experienced that, or the people who did survive, how horrific it was, their skin being pulled off and try to pull them out of the water, burnt 90% of their body. I went in the field experience, and that's something you just blow by. It's like a B-roll in Dr. Enemy, where they just dump stuff on you. You have all the stuff, you can finish your homework, but my book was to put you in their shoes. I want you to hear the ship creaking when it rolled over. I want you to hear their fear when they're reaching through a hole as they're cutting it in the Oklahoma, which is overturned. They think they're going to be saved. As soon as they cut the hole, their air pocket goes out and they all drown with their hands sticking out of the ship. That's personal. That's from the bottom up. This is what these people in the war, this is what they suffered through. And that's what the part I want people to get so they won't forget that war isn't just a name on the screen. It isn't just a bunch of numbers. It's about Joe, it's about Bob, it's about Monica Concert, the nurse, real stuff. And I usually wrote everything they said, but one time something was so horrific that I left one term out because it wasn't necessary. But usually I did what they said. You'll have different vernaculars because people were from everywhere, from the Philippines to New York City. So there were on those ships. So that's where mine delved different. I looked into their eyes. Sometimes I feel like their memories are mine because I've got everybody's memories together. So the guy that was on the side of this battleship didn't see that part because you can't see through a battleship. My brain is seeing it all. When I got there, finally, as soon as I saw it, I knew. I said, here's where he was, there's where he was, there's where he was, just like that. And that's when you get the book, you get that same feel. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Hill.
So, any other questions?
No.
Okay. Puppet, you got any other questions?
Yeah, who gets the hamburger?
For his heroism in leading the Kaneohe counterattack, John Finn is awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor.
On September the 15th, 1942, on board the USS Enterprise at Pearl Harbor, Fleet Admiral Nevitz put the medal on me, and he said, "It gives me great pleasure to hang this medal on your neck."
This is a moment caught when they took a flash picture. This photo was on John's desk in his house in California. And they caught it right at the flash, and it's still frame.
On your neck.
There's his wife Alice to his right there.